different folks who are monitoring this issue, so we should have an update there soon.
Peony 2, LC.
Go ahead.
Start center and chill down.
Roger.
LC Slick on channel 1.
Go ahead.
Looking for approval to go ahead and move the hatch frame and continue with hatch closure preps.
Roger, proceed.
Copy.
So that call out you heard there is from the pad team who are still in the white room just outside of where Butch and Sunny are sitting inside Starliner. You can see a live view of them there. They just...
LC 1 AC.
Go ahead.
I'm ready for provide a recommendation for the Centaur bottle repress.
Roger. LD, channel 1.
LD on 1.
Proceed, AC.
Okay, so we need to have the PNE2 use option 350 to reset the stop flow, and then option 320 to deselect resume. That will get us back in configuration and recharge the bottle.
Roger. Understand and concur. LD.
LD concurs.
And Peony 2, LC.
Go ahead.
Roger, you ready to execute that at this time?
Can you please repeat the steps? I was initiating CEC.
Roger. That's option 350 to reset the stop flow, and then 320 to deselect and resume.
Copy. I'm prepared.
Roger, proceed.
Roger.
So it sounds like that the ULA is still pressing forward, and that allows the pad team
And
to begin hatch closing.
Go ahead.
Without
Roger.
actually closing the hatch.
Have you
They're
been
just
able
getting
to
ready.
Restart topping at this time?
Affirmative. In topping.
Roger. And everything's nominal?
Affirmative.
At some point, could you give me an estimate when you think you'd be back at flight level?
Affirmative. I will get back to you.
Thank you.
All right, that was a good call
And
out
lock
there.
2, LC.
Go ahead.
Roger, have you initiated topping yet?
That's firm rechill was successful. Currently at 98.9.
Roger.
Well, it sounds like our elements are taken care of with
Yeah.
Flight
oxygen
and Slick and Starliner,
and
channel
helium.
1.
Here we go.
Flight here.
Starliner, go ahead.
Roger. So at this time, we've completed the transfer from VREC 3 to VREC 1, and all our systems are back active topping and returning Centaur helium to flight pressure. So at this time, I think we're on track to continue with the countdown, and in flight, I think we can demerge these nets for the time being.
Good news, LC. Nice work.
Roger. Thanks, Starliner.
Good news, flight copies will deconfigure.
All right, a lot of good call outs there, a lot of good updates. So why don't we toss it
Go
back
ahead.
over to ULA's
Should be
Dylan Rice.
approximately 20 minutes.
Roger.
And Megan, yeah, we've had a busy couple of minutes here, but as you did hear, we have recovered from
And LC
the stop.
Slick on channel 1.
Go ahead.
Wondering if you had an estimated for hatch closure weather brief.
Yeah, getting ready to issue that right now.
Roger.
RC, LC.
RC on 1.
Conduct weather briefing on Channel 8 Weather Conference Net.
Roger. LC locks 2.
Go ahead.
Centaur LO2 at flight level.
Roger.
LC PNE2.
Go ahead.
Bottles have returned to flight mass and flight pressure.
Roger.
Okay, so yeah, a lot of traffic on the net here, but just to kind of recap, we had been tracking the issue with the instrumentation associated with the Centaur topping valves. That issue's been resolved. Centaur is now back in replenish on both tanks. In fact, we just heard that the
And
Centaur
arm control, LC. Arm control. Power on crew access arm hydraulic heater as required.
Roger.
So Centaur liquid oxygen is back at flight level, and also we did have to we did vent a little bit of helium there as we recovered the systems, and the Centaur helium bottles have now been recharged as well. So it was a good sign that we did hear the team talk about continuing with the hatch closure preps, and they're moving forward to the next weather briefing, which will get us closer to launch. It sounds like that. Although we had a really exciting past hour, hopefully we have all that behind us now, and we get back to nominal operations as we continue to march toward our plan T0 of 12:25 and 40 seconds Eastern time.
To launch. So with that, as you heard, the pad team is in the white room. They are continuing preps to actually close the hatch. There will be a weather briefing first to decide whether or not they should move forward with the hatch close. While we wait for that, let's check back in with NASA's Brandy Dean and Boeing's Jim May in Mission Control.
I just want to give you step 220, Centaur engine shutdown initiated.
Flight control team here in Houston has been following along with all the issues that are going on in Florida, but things are going fairly smoothly on the Starliner side so far.
So once
We're about an hour and 16 minutes away from today's liftoff, and once we do lift off, the crew will have a 25.5-hour ride to get to the International Space Station. And with this being the crewed flight, they'll have a number of flight test objectives to work through, putting the Starliner systems through its paces to prove them out before operational flight begins. First of those will come after Butch Wilmore and Sunny Williams reach orbit today, when they'll be doing some manual piloting checkouts while they're still well away from the space station. They'll be flying some attitude maneuvers, changing Starliner's orientation, using only visual cues to start with, and then using Starliner's attitude direction indicator, which will be used for all of those other planned attitude maneuvers. And they're also going to point the spacecraft's tail to the sun to demonstrate that it can use solar arrays to recharge its batteries.
And once they arrive near station, they'll take over with manual control again to demonstrate their ability to station keep for about 5 minutes at the opening of the approach corridor. And this corridor reaches out to about 260 meters away from the forward docking port on the ISS Harmony node, or as you may hear later on the broadcast, node 2 forward. This maneuver should be pretty familiar to both Butch and Sunny because it's very similar to flight ops they performed while in the Navy, like lining up an aircraft with a refueling tanker,
and Slick LC channel
or
1,
a landing approach with a carrier. Like lining up an aircraft with a refueling tanker, landing on a carrier,
Slick on channel
or also hovering.
Roger, Slick. You have a go to proceed with hatch closure.
Roger.
Just heard the teams across the country there pulling to go ahead with the hatch closure. So that's good news moving forward with the countdown. I'm sorry, Jim, go ahead with what you were saying.
No worries. Talking about the manual piloting demo the crew's going to do while hovering out in front of ISS.
Starliner, be advised we've been given a go to proceed with final hatch closure.
Outstanding. Nice job, guys. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Much appreciated. See you when you
or longer.
And with Butch planning on staying up there longer, maybe he'll do a couple extra manual piloting demos for us while he's around there. But when they fly with these manual flight controls, It'll be 6 degree of freedom control using both joysticks, one called the rotational hand controller for changing direction, the other called the translational hand controller, similar to a throttle in an aircraft, but instead of one direction, you can go up, down, left, right, forward, and back.
That's right, but we've got to get into orbit before we get to any of that. So we've got another hour and 13 minutes until today's 10:34 p.m. Eastern launch today. Flight Director Mike Lammers has been keeping a close eye on all these activities as crew got into their seats and went through the suit leak checks. We'll have a few more things to watch as we go through the hatch closures, including the capsule leak checks. And in about an hour, Lammers will be polling for a go or no-go here in Houston, hoping to get a thumbs up across the board for today's launch. He'll be speaking for this team when he gives his final go or no-go to the launch conductor about 7 minutes before launch.
And the International Space Station also has to be go to welcome Starliner tomorrow. So let's go back to Space Station Flight Control Room and NASA's Rob Navius for an update. Rob?
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Flight Director Pooja Jasrani on console at this hour with the Orbit 2 team of flight controllers. They'll be polling their team to get the green light to proceed with the countdown and the launch that hopefully will culminate with a docking by Starliner to the Harmony module of the International Space Station at 1:50 p.m. Eastern Time on Sunday. During the week or so that Wilmore and Williams are aboard the International Space Station, each dock day will see a different variety of activity for the Starliner duo. On Monday, for example, Wilmore and Williams will continue unloading cargo they brought to the station and will transfer some used emergency equipment from station to Starliner for the trip back to Earth. They'll stow their launch and entry suits aboard the vehicle and conduct a debrief with NASA and Boeing officials about the rendezvous and docking phase of the mission. Once Starliner's batteries are charged through station power resources, Starliner will be configured for quiescent operations. So with hatch closure in the offing and the countdown proceeding for a liftoff 1 hour, 11 minutes, and 40 seconds from now, we'll toss it back from the Space Station Flight Control Room to you folks down at the Cape.
If you're just joining us, welcome to the official broadcast of NASA's Boeing Crew Flight Test, or CFT. What you are seeing now is a live look from one of our helicopters here along the Space Coast, orbiting the Starliner spacecraft atop a ULA Atlas V rocket. Inside that Starliner spacecraft, 2 NASA astronauts, Commander Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams, pilot.
Maybe I just didn't get it formally from you, but you're back at flight level.
Affirmative.
Roger.
At launch, Butch and Sonny will make history as the first people to fly aboard Boeing's Starliner capsule. And liftoff is targeted for about an hour and 10 minutes from now at 12:25 and 40 seconds p.m. Eastern Time. And we are happily proceeding, marching towards that T0 after a busy hour. Mike, can you kind of recap for people the last hour of the launch countdown?
Well, in the last hour, we got to see some really great engineering and launch operations and teamwork happen. So the second stage of the Atlas launch vehicle, called Centaur, it is powered, its fuels are liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen, and it already has all the fuel in it, but since they're liquid, they're very cold and they kind of boil off, so we just add a little bit more on top, so we top it off.
1 hour, 10 minutes.
The 2 valves that were used for topping off lost insight for their control algorithms, so they couldn't see the sensors, and it was an upstream bus, so they changed the control algorithm and logic and got back in business. So we were back on the launch timeline. The crew was informed. Everybody was talked to about it. Never in danger. Just a way to just having to relook at a different control system and sensors. So in the meantime, the pad team was held off from closing the hatch just in case they needed to get the crew out today.
RC, Channel 1.
And they're
RC,
closing the hatch now.
Verify range ready for FTS open loop test.
Verified.
FTS LC.
This FTS.
Start final open loop FTS test.
Roger.
And FTS stands for Flight Termination System in case the rocket were to go off course. Of course, by that time, the Starliner, if the FTS were needed, the Starliner would fly out of the way. But that's just a normal test right now. And you can see they're closing the hatch. We're getting ready to launch in 1 hour and 8 minutes. Very exciting.
Yes, very exciting.
You know, teams are periodically briefed on the weather for today's launch. Let's check back in with Daryl Nail over at Hangar AE with the latest. Daryl?
Thank you very much, Dee. And here at Hangar AE with the team, monitoring both the launch operation as well as the weather. We got a great weather report from our launch weather officer just a few minutes ago. Winds were the one watch item, and they were driven, as you look at the satellite map, by a high-pressure system off the coast of North Carolina that you can see there, that clearing area. You see how it's turning in a clockwise direction. That's what's bringing all of our onshore flow. That is what's driving these winds. You see the clouds going by overhead. So this image from College of DuPage, they've got our GOES 16 data streaming through, and it's a great representation. You can also see the Ascent corridor as a result of that high pressure system is also fairly clear all the way up the eastern seaboard. That's the track that Starliner will take. That's good as well. Only some moderate concerns for high sea states because of those winds. But overall, we are looking good in the corridor. We are 90%
LC
go.
Slick on channel 1.
Go ahead.
Hatch closure is complete, and we're moving into hatch gross leak checks.
Roger.
All right, hatch closure is complete, a great milestone that we've reached in this operation to get to liftoff. And just to wrap up, 90% go here at the pad. We're good to go along the Ascent corridor, and so for weather, we're looking fantastic for a June 1st day, and which is the first meteorological day of summer. Usually we have rain and thunderstorms this time of day. Fortunately, we don't. There you see the graphic, 90% go. And everything look weather-wise.
Starliner Houston back with you, ready for pre-launch cabin leak check. You can prepare for cabin pressurization per your checklist. Configure the HIU Vox sensitivity knobs to maximum.
Teamwork.
And as we look at the Starliner capsule from inside the white room, the blue team getting ready to make their exit, doing their final preparations before they leave. You can see them going through their list of procedures right there on the desk there. Also, that's a great call out. We want to hear that the capsule can be pressurized, and so they're doing that now. At this moment, I want to welcome into Hangar AE Deputy Program Manager Dana Hutcherson, who is here now with me. Thanks for taking the time to come over and talk to us. You're on console. You've been listening to the teams, both ULA and Boeing, as they prepare this rocket and spacecraft to go. It's been a little exciting over the last hour or so. Talk a little bit about that, what you observed from ULA team and your team in getting through the ground valve issue where they were able to do a redundant system.
Is removed.
And they were able to get that stabilized, get back into flow.
Yeah, it's been an exciting last hour or so, I guess, on the count. It's really cool to see the teams reacting to any anomaly that's been popping up, and they've been able to work through it. They've ran tests offline to validate the procedures and been able to jump right back into it to be able to get us back into the flow and the process. So it's really neat to see how everyone is ready for this launch and on point and just getting everything together for this launch today.
I was particularly impressed in listening to the ULA team and how quickly they worked through the problem and how fast they were able to bring the flow back in after resolving that redundant data issue that they had. That was impressive. Let's go over to the Boeing team. Earlier in the count, they pressurized the thruster manifold that had the issue with the helium leak. How did that go?
They everything went nominal. We expected to see some leak, and it was about the same. All the other checks came out nominal as well. So I believe that we are all systems go in that front. Haven't seen any other issues that have alerted us or alarmed us as well. So we're happy that we've discussed that at length, and we've planned out our procedures and our process of how we would react to that. But so far, everything is looking good with the helium system as well.
You mentioned discussed at length. This team, your team, along with ULA and Boeing, have worked extremely hard in the weeks leading up to this. I've sat in on a few of the meetings. It's amazing to me the amount of detail, the amount of work that has been done in order to verify and make sure this is safe to fly. Talk a little bit about how hard the team was working.
The team is just all the teams. You remember we started off with working with the ULA, with the valve replacement. So that started our process from the time we scrubbed in early May. So from there, we've moved into the working with the spacecraft and the helium anomaly. The teams have been working night and day to resolve that, to make sure that we've stepped through every procedure, every process, and making sure that we're okay. It's been phenomenal to watch the team and to see the camaraderie across all the boards and listening to all the experts and making sure that we are good to go. We've had to pull in a lot of extra boards and actually had another flight readiness review as well to make sure that the whole agency at NASA and then Boeing and ULA, everyone is ready to go. Very awesome to see this teamwork and the seamless teamwork across the board.
That Delta FRR just a couple days ago that was held, and we had a press conference yesterday, and the team reported out that everything is moving forward. You know, you're talking about how hard the team worked. They deserved a little time off, so you guys took Memorial Day weekend to kind of recharge a little bit.
Yes, we did. We allowed some the folks to go and take a little bit of a break, have a barbecue if they needed to, and you know, get a little bit of a recharge, as you said, you know, to be able to get back into and have a clear mind and be able to get back into the procedures for this week.
Further proof that you are indeed a human being. You know, these are human people that are working on all this. I just got to flash this really quick. This is Dana Hutcherson on a local community magazine in our city. And here she is with her husband, Jeremy, and her 2 dogs, her 2 labs. I sat down to my dining room table. My wife had this sitting on, and I said, well, look at this. This is the woman I'm interviewing today for the launch broadcast. Learned some interesting things about you, Dana. You like to, you know, obviously travel and do fun water sports all around Florida. And it also says here that you're an introvert.
Yes, I am very much so an introvert, but you wouldn't know it, I guess, some days. Yeah. But yes, that was really a surprise to get to see that and have that opportunity. Being featured on Cocoa Beach Living.
Cocoa Beach's own Dana Hutcherson, Deputy Program Manager for CCP. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And continued good luck on the team working towards launch.
Appreciate it.
Yep. All right, we'll send it back to you.
We have teams monitoring today's launch operations here in Florida as well as in Houston. In the room right next to Leroy, you have ULA's Dylan Rice and Boeing's Lauren Brennecke, who have been monitoring operations with the rocket and the spacecraft for the last 3 hours.
Yeah, Dia, we've actually been monitoring them close the hatch and start the pressurization process. As you've seen there on your screen, I want to give you a little bit of perspective on how this works, and it's kind of interesting what the astronauts will experience sitting in there. It's a lot like when you feel a pressure change when you're in an aircraft. So their ears will pop, and the whole process, doesn't take very long. It just takes a couple of minutes. But our team is checking about half a dozen valves and more than 60 seals. So things like windows and hatches and vestibules, and they will let the spacecraft sit for about 10 minutes while they check. You could think of this as like inflating a balloon. When you start to inflate a balloon, you'd be able to tell pretty quickly if there was any kind of a leak where the air would be coming back out of it. So very similar process here, and that's what the team is going through. If you are just joining us, we are just under 1 hour till launch time. A couple of hours ago, our teams, the Boeing teams, were able to confirm that the leak rate remains acceptable. If you've been following along with us this week, you may have have heard about the helium leak that we had, but we know now the leak rate remains acceptable. And in fact, our teams even said that it looks better than before. So all good news. And Dylan, Atlas really has been all over the solar system. Today's a little different because we have crew on board.
Well, that's right, Lauren. And so, we are, we really are thrilled to have Butch and Sunny on board, and thrilled to be a part of this program as we put Atlas back in service for human spaceflight. This, on the one hand, we have some really thoroughly established processes and procedures that we've used for missions to the Sun, the Moon, Mars, and we're using those today. But this countdown really is unlike anything we've done before, and so we're just absolutely thrilled to be a part of it. We remain in our final built-in hold now as we continue to prepare for liftoff, but there are still a few things ahead of us today. As you talked about, the blue team is on the pad while that leak check is going on. They're continuing their preps to clear out. Once we do get the area clear, we'll be preparing the vehicle's propulsion and hydraulic systems for launch. We'll also be getting some data and loading that into the flight computer that will help Atlas and Centaur steer through the upper level winds as we pierce the atmosphere. You'll also be hearing some comm checks between the Chief Launch Conductor Doug Lebo and the Starliner crew and Houston as well. As we get all those things will take us closer and closer to our launch opportunity today, coming up at 12:25 and 40 seconds. And of course, the one big visual cue that you will get that we're moving right along will be a retraction of that big crew access arm. So that's going to be coming up here in just a little over 40 minutes, a little under 40 minutes, I should say. But the big crew access arm will retract, and at that point we'll be very close to launch.
And it's really important that the crew cleans everything up.
On channel 1.
Go FTS.
Operation 55, step 270, FTS open loop test is complete.
Roger.
All right. All right, we just heard that leak check is complete. Again, we are just under 1 hour. We're about 56, 57 minutes right now away from launch. The cabin leak check is complete, and we are moving forward nominally. Feeling like a great day to go to space, Dylan.
I agree. Let's do it.
Megan, we will check back in with you in just a little bit. Back over to you guys.
Well said, Dylan. Let's do it. And actually, why don't we take the time now to take another look at the crew making history with this test flight. You see Commander Butch Wilmore closest to the screen here, corner right. Now, Commander Butch Wilmore, NASA astronaut and retired U.S. Navy captain, was raised in Mount Juliet, Tennessee, is married to Deanna Wilmore, and they have 2 daughters. As a naval pilot, Butch racked up more than 8,000 flight hours and 663 carrier landings, all in pilot school at Edwards Air Force Base in California. Butch is a veteran of 2 space flights as a pilot on Space Shuttle Atlantis in 2009, and then in 2014 he served as flight engineer for Expedition 41. And so far, Wilmore has spent 178 days in space and performed 4 spacewalks. This flight test will be his 3rd mission to the ISS.
And Sunny Williams, CFT's pilot and a retired U.S. Navy captain. NASA selected her as an astronaut in 1998, just 2 years before Butch. This will be Sunny's 3rd mission to space, making her the first woman on a test flight of an orbital spacecraft. Her first trip to the ISS launched in 2006. She served as flight engineer for Expeditions 14-15. She then returned to the orbiting lab in 2012 and was commander of Expedition 33. Sunny has more than 50 hours of spacewalk time, the 2nd most cumulative time by a female astronaut. So far, she has spent 322 days in space. Before NASA, Sunny was a former naval test pilot and instructor, logging more than 3,000 flight hours in more than 30 different aircraft. Williams grew up in Needham, Massachusetts, and is married to Michael Williams.
Starliner at Houston on 1. Good pressure. The side hatch is being configured now. Audible noises may be heard.
Standing by, thanks.
She enjoys hanging out with her dogs, working out, hiking and camping, as well as working on cars and houses.
What do these two not do, Mike?
No, they are some of NASA's finest, and were chosen to fly on this mission so that we can get Starliner certified and fly more Starliners to the space station in the future.
How does it feel, seeing your friends who you've trained alongside with so many years now? How does it feel to see them about 53 minutes to launch?
I am so proud of my friends. I've been working with Butch and Sonny for, as like Butch likes to say, half a decade, 5 years or so, and we're as you can see today, and all the work as we were getting ready to launch today, how much Butch and Sonny, as well as we appreciate the whole team that we're part of. Sure. And Butch and Sonny have really expressed their gratitude to everyone and try to include the team as we all go forward on this mission. And so I'm super proud of them, and I'm a little envious, but I'm really happy for them to be this close to flight. 53 minutes to go.
You're not the only astronaut that says that. It's okay.
As the crew aboard Starliner prepares to launch to the space station, let's take a look at what's in store for them, for Sonny and Butch, while on this mission.
The mission of the Commercial Crew Program is to provide transportation for astronauts to the International Space Station.
Multiple providers provide you redundancy. Redundancy is important, as we know. In our systems, we have redundant systems.
But actually, more importantly, it's providing the aerospace workforce the opportunity to test out new ideas, new technologies, and work them into spacecraft. Butch and I are the first two to fly the Starliner, so this flight will be a crew flight test, so there'll only be two on board. We're going to fly it up to the space station, dock it, and test it all out, and then come back home.
Everything's new. The procedures are new. We have procedures now that we didn't have a year ago because we've learned as the process has gone forward.
We've had 2 test flights uncrewed previously, but this will be the first time we're putting people on it.
We're test pilots, and so we're going to be testing the spacecraft in all aspects of the flight, from launch, on orbit, all the way to entry and landing.
We're testing out the environmental control system. We're testing out the manual flying of the spacecraft. Then while we're docked to the space station, we have a bunch of tasks to make sure that the spacecraft can act as a lifeboat. And just in case anything bad goes on the International Space Station, the crew on board can come to the Starliner and make sure that they're okay.
This has a mode where we call it backup mode, which is your get home mode, if you will. We can, without any communication at all, we can still effect a return to Earth, do a deorbit burn, and hit the point where we're trying to land, even without our computers. You know, that old mantra, failure is not an option, because it's a very dynamic thing we do flying in space, and it's not very forgiving, and we know that. And that's why we have these multiple systems and multiple redundant capabilities, because human life is special, and we want to preserve it at all costs.
I think exploration is just in the human heart. Butch, he describes himself as the first thing he said as a kid was why. And I think that's in all of us. Maybe we don't verbalize it, but we all ask why. And that's what exploration is. It's that next step of why. So why not go back to the moon? Why not try to live on the moon? It seems like a natural stepping stone to the next thing, Mars, which just calls us. Like, why is that planet there? What is the future of that planet? What is the future of our planet? And to be able to take these next steps in exploration, we're going to start answering those questions.
We stand on the pinnacle. This is kind of where integration, everything comes together, which is where Sonny and I sit. And this is just a part of the ongoing process of growing and expounding our knowledge and our understanding of all things for the benefit of mankind.
I am Sonny Williams, and I am ready to fly NASA's Boeing Crew Flight Test.
I'm Butch Wilmore, and I am ready to fly NASA's Boeing Crew Flight Test.
And we are ready to see them fly as well. You know, we've been inviting our viewers, you guys, to reach out to us on social media and ask us any questions you might have about this historic flight test. And one that we've been seeing a lot is, you know, why are teams still launching while there is a helium leak on Starliner, on the Starliner spacecraft. Mike, can you address that?
No, that's a really good question, and we spent a whole week and a half getting ready to be able to answer that to ourselves and to Butch and Sunny, saying, why is this okay, or how is this okay, or should we take the spacecraft back and replace it? Well, we looked at not just the data that we've seen, but also the what could happen in the worst case, and then what could happen even worse than that. And at every point, and because Starliner, you heard what Butch said on the overview there, was that Starliner has a lot of redundant systems. So even if we were to, if that leak were to get bigger, and it hasn't, but if it were to get bigger, it could get a lot bigger, and we'd still be okay. And even if it leaked out the entire bottle of helium for that manifold, we could still fly back and land safely in the desert in Southwest United States. So NASA looked at what the risks were, and working with the crew, and the crew office said, hey, this is not ideal. We don't like this. But this is a test flight, and we were able to manage this risk and accept this risk. And it's a really tiny leak. We will be okay. And if it isn't, here's what we do. And we spent a lot of time in the simulators and writing procedures just in case. Just like we saw a little bit earlier, United Launch Alliance, they had a small anomaly. They said, all right, here's our alternate procedures. Let's run through it. And they went through it methodically. We do the same thing on board. So we have everything ready just in case.
Yeah, and just for more context, as you said, this is a very small leak. Starliner could handle 4 more leaks, or this one leak growing by 100 times its current size before needing to be managed in flight. And actually, other spacecraft like Shuttle have launched with similar helium leaks in the past. Also important to note, teams continue to watch and monitor this leak to make sure that it's not growing. And as we've said, it has not grown in the time that they've first detected this leak. So again, that's why the decision is being made to fly, and that's why we continue to march towards our instantaneous launch opportunity at 12:25 and 40 seconds Eastern Time. Meanwhile, inside Mission Control at Johnson Space Center in Houston, folks there are keeping a close eye on launch, continue to do so. Here's NASA's Brandy Dean and Boeing's Jim May.
Thanks, Megan, and welcome back to the Starliner Flight Control Room in Mission Control Houston, where the flight control team is continuing to follow along with all the activities going on in Florida, now that we are 46 minutes away from today's launch. Once Starliner gets off the pad, Jim and I will be with you through Ascent, giving you play-by-play and expanding on the calls that you'll hear Capcom Joshua Kutrick making to Butch Wilmore and Sunny Williams on board.
There are a number of major milestones you want to keep an eye out for during Starliner's climb to orbit. The first call that you'll hear from Starliner's crew is roll program, coming from Commander Wilmore, indicating that Starliner is rolling into the right orientation for ascent and orbit operations. Then about 45 seconds into the flight, the crew and Starliner will reach max Q, which is the maximum dynamic pressure that they will experience during ascent, and that happens just before they reach Mach 1.
Then a minute and 35 seconds into flight, the solid rocket boosters that give Starliner its first major push into orbit will have used up all of their fuel. Starliner will hold on to them for a little more than a minute after that, and then jettison the boosters before second stage takes over and take Starliner away the rest of the way.
Starliner will actually reach orbit around 11 minutes and 58 seconds into flight, at which at that point the Centaur main engine will cut off. Starliner and its crew will hold on to that stage for a couple minutes and then separate from it at around the 14-minute, 58-second mark. From there, Butch and Sunny will be free flying on orbit in Starliner.
During Ascent, you'll hear Kutrick mentioning a number of abort-related milestones as Starliner moves past them. Starliner can safely abort all the way up to orbit, including off the east coast, off the coast of Newfoundland, and off the coast of Ireland. Beyond that, it will be able to safely reach abort to orbit, staying in space as an abort. And of course, we're hoping not to need any of those.
Request permission to begin white room closeout.
Roger, thanks, Slick. Blue team, perform toxic vapor and O2 checks when raising the environmental seal and configure white room for launch.
Roger.
And Slick, if you get a annulus purge disconnect time.
And once Starliner has made it to orbit, the last major milestone before the crew begins what we called orbit ops is called the orbit insertion, or OI burn. That will move Starliner into an elliptical orbit as opposed to a more circular one.
Slick. We're calling it 1537 Zulu.
Roger.
Going from a circular orbit, which they get off of after separating from Atlas, into an elliptical orbit, and then from there, Starliner will be on its way to International Space Station.
Yeah, and it sounds like the teams that have been getting Butch and Sunny ready are just about done with their job and ready to move, or getting ready to move away from the White Room. But before we go back to Florida, let's check in with Rob Navius in the International Space Station Flight Control Team. Rob?
Thanks, Brandy. Just inside 44 minutes until launch, and back here in the ISS Flight Control Room, flight controllers are keeping tabs on the countdown and monitoring the work on board in the aftermath of the docking of the unpiloted Progress resupply craft earlier today at 7:43 a.m. Eastern Time. Now, NASA astronauts Matt Dominic, Mike Barrett, Jeanette Epps, and Tracy Dyson, along with Station Commander Oleg Kononenko of Roscosmos and fellow cosmonauts Nikolai Chub and Alexander Grabenkin, will form the welcoming committee when Wilmore and Williams arrive on board tomorrow. The dock timeline is elastic. That means that the number of days that Starliner could stay at the station could be pared down or expanded depending on any further launch delays or undocking delays driven by weather conditions at the western U.S. landing sites for Starliner. One critical dock day for the Starliner crew.
Starliner Houston, cabin leak check complete. You can open the vent valve.
All right, great. That's in work.
One critical dock day for the Starliner crew will come 2 days prior to their scheduled undocking, when they load the last of the cargo items to be returned to Earth in the vehicle and will conduct onboard manual piloting proficiency that will enable them to stay sharp for their departure from the station and the deorbit and entry events that will follow. So here we are at the intersection of Cape Canaveral, Houston, and space. And aboard the station, two of the Expedition 71 crew members, Jeanette Epps and Tracy Dyson, recently took a moment to set the table for the arrival of Wilmore and Williams at their orbital destination.
Hey, Sunny and Butch, we can't wait for you guys to join us here on station. We'll be monitoring your every move on the journey, and we'll be waiting to open the hatch and welcome you to your home away from home.
Butch and Sunny, we know you've waited a while to get your ride aboard Starliner, but we know it will have been worth every minute. So from all of us on the International Space Station, Godspeed, and we'll see you soon.
As we prepare in less than an hour to launch 2 astronauts to space during this test flight, let's check back in with NASA's Antonio Jaramillo, who spoke earlier today with NASA's top administrator about this mission.
It's always an honor to be joined by NASA leadership, and joining me today is NASA Administrator Bill Nelson. Administrator Nelson, can you tell us why it's so important for the space agency that we have another American space company launching from American soil?
You always want to have a backup position, and in this case, a second spacecraft. For example, when we go to the moon, we will have 2 landers. We will have a SpaceX lander, that's first, and then the Blue Origin lander. But this is a significant launch of a test of a brand new human-rated spacecraft, and it's only 6 in the history of NASA. There was Mercury, Gemini, Apollo, then the Space Shuttle, then Dragon, and now the Boeing Starliner launching for the first time with humans on board.
That's right. It's very historic, very important. And you touched on this. Why is it important in general that we do have multiple spacecraft available to send humans to space?
Because we want to explore. We are exploring in many different ways with humans as our astronauts. We go back to the moon, not just to go to the moon, but to get ready, to learn, to live, to create in order to go to Mars. But that's just one part of our space program. The science, research, the exploration of the heavens, the commercial program. We're going back to the moon later this year with a commercial lander with a NASA instrument that's going to dig to see if there is water on the South Pole. It's a whole combination of a bunch of things that are going on.
That's right. You briefly touched on that. I mean, there's already been a ton of exciting missions this year. What else can the public look forward to?
Well, in addition to those, remember the first A in NASA is aeronautics. And we're going to fly the needle nose new supersonic. It goes faster than the speed of sound, and it's designed so that it will not make the sonic boom, so that it could fly faster than the speed of sound over populated areas. That's one. We got another aviation project to improve the fuel efficiency by 30% of a mid-range single-aisle transport aircraft like the Boeing 737.
That is fascinating. Administrator Nelson, thank you so much for joining us here today. We'll send it back over to you.
We interviewed the administrator earlier because he is currently at the ASOC with the launch team as we watch the crew access arm moving away from the Starliner spacecraft. Now, the plan is for Butch and Sunny to be docked to the ISS for at least 8 days, and after they will return to Earth with a soft touchdown in the American Southwest. There, this is video and sound from inside Starliner during its return to Earth 2 years ago as part of the Orbital Flight Test 2 mission. Its heat shield reaches 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit during re-entry, and parachutes are then deployed and the heat shield discarded to expose Starliner's airbags. The original test pilot, Rosie the Rocketeer, you see there, collected data of what astronauts might experience during landing. Starliner is the first and only American orbital crew capsule to land on land. This allows for quicker access to crew and cargo. It also makes turning the spacecraft around for future missions quicker. But Mike, Starliner can also land in water, like we were talking about earlier.
Yes, Starliner is a very capable spacecraft. Of course, we want it to land on land for the reasons you said. I love those airbags. I can't wait to ask Butch and Sunny how good those are. But in case of emergency, we can land on water. And we have a central airbag, another one.
28 seconds, excess burn duration, and we'll go north to triage 6 if necessary.
The crew was just calling in. They just got some data.
And those are all good here, Starliner. Good readback. One additional item for you. In the commander's folio, you'll recall you have your 2 tablets. You've got a serial number 12 and a serial number 13. They're both ready to go, but one thing for you. Serial number 12, we were looking at footage here. Its time is out of sync. So it's no issue for you till orbit. When you're on orbit, you'll want to get that tablet, serial number 12, back in sync with the time on your DUs. It's only going to influence where you see the red line and bold. So if you did have to use bold before that, go ahead and do it on 13. Otherwise, we'll just resync in flight, and we can help you with that when we get there.
All right, good words. We'll copy that, and if we have any questions when we get there, we'll give you a call. And I have confirmed that I can reach the tablets.
Houston copies.
That was Josh Kutrick giving some last-minute info to Butch and Sunny about their tablets, as well as in case of emergency where to go left or right at the end of the slide wires. But yeah, Starliner could land on water. We'd rather not, but it has that capability, and it has a different airbag configuration for that.
Yeah, the flexibility is great.
We have just about a half hour left before launch. Let's check back in with NASA's Antonia Jaramillo, who's now with someone who's been a part of Starliner since the beginning. Tony?
Thank you, Dee. For those of us just joining, we are here at OSB 2, one of the viewing locations for this launch. And joining me is Chris Ferguson, former NASA astronaut and Boeing astronaut. Chris, you've been part of Starliner since the beginning. How does it feel to be here and now get to watch it take flight with astronauts on board?
Well, given it's such a darn gorgeous day, I'm really excited. Of course, this is the culmination of probably 12 years of, just watching and working and getting involved with the development. But I was very excited to see it all come together. It's a little breezy out here, but you can't beat the weather.
Absolutely. It is a gorgeous day. Now, Chris, if you could give a piece of advice to Butch and Sunny and to all our astronauts flying on our commercial crew missions, what would it be?
Well, Butch and Sunny are pretty darn experienced. They probably don't need my advice. But what I would say, on a very first ascent of a vehicle and a re-entry, I would say take it all in, experience it. Think about what you're feeling, what you're experiencing, what's staging going to be like, what's it like when the parachutes come out, because these are questions that everyone's going to know when you get back, right? We want to know, did we build a vehicle that's comfortable to fly?
Absolutely. We can't wait to know. I mean, we're all taking it in here too. Chris, it's our understanding that your fingerprints are all over the spacecraft, in particular the launch console and displays. What can Butch and Sunny expect to see and experience aboard Starliner for their flight, and how does that compare to flying the space shuttle?
Yeah, I think the idea behind the design is to make sure that the crew always has reasonable awareness of what's going on. I remember with the space shuttle days, sometimes the displays were a little archaic. You had to really almost have a graduate degree to understand exactly what you were looking at. So the idea is to make it a lot more airplane-like, because the crews are very experienced pilots and aviators, and for the next generation of Starliner astronauts to come along, we want to make it very intuitive. So we've reduced the number of switches to the bare minimum. The shuttle had 1,000. We have 25 maybe. I don't know what the right number is, but it's a very streamlined. It's capable of being flown by a single person. So there's a lot of, I would say, upgrades that make it safer and a lot more flexible than its predecessor, the space shuttle.
Definitely a very impressive spacecraft. And Butch and Sunny, they're going to also perform a few manual demonstrations aboard. You also were a part of this flight test in the beginning. Can you talk to us a little bit about these manual demonstrations and just kind of the importance of why Boeing decided to have both a blend of autonomous and manual capabilities?
Yeah, there's always a sort of a contentious look, between engineers and pilots on how do I control the spacecraft. The pilots always want the ultimate ability to take over in a situation when they need to. So the Starliner flies very much like the space shuttle and the Apollo and the other capsule vehicles, with 2 different hand controllers where you can control all 6 degrees of freedom. You can maneuver it to an attitude if you needed to, say, charge your solar arrays or pick up a communication satellite. And they'll have the opportunity, of course, to check that out. And then there's also a deeper level of redundancy called backup mode, which is a means that the crew could manually fly the vehicle, even in the unlikely event that all the flight management computers fail. So there's a lot of redundancy, and it really is a true piloting vehicle, which is, I think, why the NASA customers really enjoy it so much.
I'm sure. Well, Chris, thank you so much for joining us. Megan D. Mike, back over to you.
All right, a quick check of the clock. We are 31 minutes and 40 seconds to liftoff of NASA's Boeing crew flight test. And right now, what you just saw on the screen there, you see Butch and Sunny. They are patiently waiting their launch inside of Starliner's spacecraft there. And then also we did see the pad team who've been helping Butch and Sunny into their spacecraft, as well as securing the spacecraft and closing the doors. They have since left the pad, right, Mike?
Absolutely. So only thing that's left is we have a rocket and a spacecraft and 2 human beings sitting on top getting ready for launch in 31 minutes.
Yeah, and so what we expect to hear coming up is just repeated communication checks with Capcom and Houston and with the crew. And also this is an opportunity, right, to discuss any anomalies or resolutions, but we haven't heard anything.
Yes, I think we hopefully got that out of our system earlier, and here we go.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Per step 20, operation 60, blast engine area is clear.
Roger.
They just confirmed that that it is just indeed the rocket, spacecraft, and 2 human beings.
And so, yeah, so we'll hear those continued checks, and this is just an opportunity for some status updates if needed, right? This is kind of time that's built in to allow for discussion if needed.
Absolutely. We're waiting for the Earth to rotate in just the right position for that instantaneous launch window. And any anomalies we had, we got out of the way. And now everybody is
minus 30 minutes.
double checking their data.
RC, conduct weather briefing on Channel 8 weather conference.
And the weather.
Right.
Roger. Arm control, start arm hydraulic final prep.
Roger.
LOX 1, perform pogo suppressor charge.
Roger.
Prop 1, perform RD180 transducer converter calibration.
Roger.
P&E 2, perform Centaur LH2 SVV cycle test.
Roger.
These are nominal countdown checks for the from the launch conductor, Doug Lebo, asking his team to do their 30-minute steps to get the rocket that much closer to ready for launch.
Historic flight test, as we've been telling you throughout this broadcast. We've been on air now since 8:15 a.m. Eastern Time to tell you about the first 2 astronauts that are going to fly in Starliner. And again, we keep seeing live views of them inside Starliner. Commander Butch Wilmore and pilot Sonny Williams.
RD180 transducer calibration is complete, and the engine FIV is in a closed condition.
Roger.
L minus 29 minutes.
Flight control, start flight control final prep.
Roger.
Now, Sonny will be the first woman to test an orbital spacecraft. Another fun fact, the last time people flew to space in an Atlas-class rocket was 61 years ago at the end of the Mercury program. CFT is the final test to certify a second commercial spacecraft to ferry astronauts to and from the space station, which really is a wonderful resource to us and many countries and also research institutions. All right, again, 28 minutes, 5 seconds to liftoff. Let's head back over to Brandy and Jim inside Mission Control in Houston.
LC, P&E 2.
Go ahead.
Centaur LH2 SVV cycle tests are complete.
Flight test.
Roger.
Flight Director Mike Lammers is just about to pull the flight control team here in Houston for a go or no-go, verifying that all of Starliner systems are ready for launch today. Everything's looking good at the moment, and Lammers will use this poll to determine his own response to the final go no-go poll by the launch conductor just before liftoff.
Once we do get into the
And
terminal
flight control.
countdown time frame,
LC.
there are...
Go ahead.
Roger, do we have the temperature update complete?
Roger, the RP1 temperature update complete.
Roger. Prop 1, initiate fuel fill sequence.
Roger.
And once we're in that terminal countdown time frame,
Go ahead.
Few
Yeah,
major...
we've been discussing before the CISA temp. It's a noisy measurement. I'd like to take this to 6, get a recommendation, probably to 2 disable.
Roger. Convene the anomaly team and provide a recommendation.
We'll go. L minus 27 minutes.
And the first...
LC arm control.
One of the major activities that...
Go ahead.
Step 100. Arm hydraulic final preps are complete.
Roger.
One of the first activities Mike Lammer's team will be doing is transitioning Starliner from ground power to battery power. That'll come about 18 minutes before launch. We leave it about as late as possible so that the team can launch with those batteries as close to full power as possible. A few minutes later, with less than 10 minutes to go before liftoff, Starliner's ordnance will be armed, and that activates the critical systems that are needed to detach all the things from Starliner that will ultimately jettison as it climbs to orbit, and if it were needed to abort. And finally, just 1 minute and 15 seconds before launch, they'll work with the crew to activate the launch abort system, which would rocket the crew to safety in the case of an abort, or on the pad, or early in the ascent.
This is likely the last you'll hear from us until liftoff, so we are going to send you back to the team in Florida to let Megan, Dee, and Mike see us through the rest of the countdown. We'll be back once Starliner is on its way. Go Starliner.
Thank you, Brandy and Jim. Okay, let's take a closer look now at Starliner. The next generation crew capsule measures 16.5 feet tall with a diameter of 15 feet. That's about the size of a mid-size SUV. It was designed to carry up to 7 astronauts or a mix of crew and cargo for missions to the International Space Station. After today's test flight, NASA will fly crews of 4 or 5 with cargo, and Starliner is also reusable up to 10 times.
Yeah, we're looking
LCOSM.
to getting...
Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Per step 60, flight hazard area has been cleared. All personnel accounted for.
Roger.
All right, everybody is in place for launch. Starliner, we're looking forward to getting it certified so we can continue our missions to the International Space Station with 4 NASA astronauts. And Boeing will have the option to use Starliner to fly to other space stations and to help build the low Earth economy, low Earth orbit economy.
Hey, Mike, let's squeeze in a social question since we've invited viewers to send them to us. This is from John on YouTube asking, how did the astronaut train for this mission? It's actually a question from a 10-year-old named Maddie.
Well, hi, Maddie. Hi, John. Yeah, so we spend a lot of time practicing exactly what's going on today. We sit inside a simulator, which looks and feels like a rocket, and we push all the buttons and switches and look at our data. And sometimes they even give us these things called malfunctions, which something goes wrong, and we have to think our way through it and follow our procedures to have a safe practice mission. And we do that for about 1.5 years. In this case, for us, it's a new spacecraft, so it took us 5 years, but it takes us about 1.5 years to train for new spacecraft.
Roger. Please disable line item 390.
Active.
Again, some nominal call-outs there as we march towards our instantaneous launch opportunity at 12:25 and 40 seconds.
It's really neat that we're hearing all the voice chatter back and forth from our team. I mean, what a nice thing to be able to share with everybody watching today.
Flight control final preps complete and Atlas hydraulics at standby pressure.
Roger.
And with that, let's head back over.
Go ahead.
Line item 390 has been disabled.
Roger.
Let's head back over to ULA's Dylan Rice and Boeing's Lauren Brennecke from the ASOC.
Thank you, Megan. So you may have heard just a few minutes ago the team talking about they're actually telling Butch and Sunny once they get up into space that they will need to sync their tablet. Wanted to give a little bit of a perspective on that. Basically, it's just the system clock in that tablet. You could think of it as it's just like going down to the start menu on Windows and syncing up the clock. It's been, of course, turned off for a little bit, and not connected to internet. So it's just something like you would do at home to re-establish the new time on your microwave. But Dylan, they've also heard about an anomaly on the ULA side. Not a big deal, but let's give them a little bit of perspective on that.
Sure, Lauren. So we had, we did hear a report of a noisy temperature measurement, and this particular measurement is the interstage adapter, but so that's the adapter between Atlas and Centaur. And this measurement is something that's automatically disabled when we enter our terminal count at T-minus 4 minutes. But over the past few minutes, we've observed this measurement bouncing around a little bit. So now that the vehicle is fully loaded with propellants and we've been stable for quite a while, this measurement is really not something that we rely heavily on when we're fully tanked and stable. So we're going to go ahead and disable it early rather than waiting for the automatic disable as we approach terminal count. And that just would prevent any what we'd consider to be a nuisance alarm at this point. So nothing major there. It's kind of a standard operating procedure for a noisy measurement like this.
And we are just a little over 21 minutes out from launch.
Cargo suppressor charge is complete.
Roger.
As I was saying, just a little over, right now, about 21 minutes out from launch. And I've been thinking a lot about Butch and Sunny going back to the ISS for a third time for both of them. Sunny told us that really the ISS feels like home for them. If you think about it, they've both spent a good portion of time there. They both spent 6 months in their first trip up and 6 months in their second trip up. So now going back for their third time, they're going to a place that they consider home. If you think about living somewhere for literally a year out of your life, it means a lot to you. It's very special. And Sunny even told us that...
Go ahead.
Step 90, all secondary decoms verified on RF link.
Roger.
And Sunny even told us that she cried the last time she left the ISS because she thought it would be her last time in space. So you can just imagine how special this trip will be for both her and Butch. And we are getting very close now to that moment where they are going to be headed to space. We are coming up on a call for the visors to come down. We're going to hear Capcom tell the crew to pull their visors down and to configure their suit flow.
L-minus 20 minutes.
Starliner, there's
Peony 1, reinitiate HV targeting.
Configure
Roger.
suit flow.
RLM, verify redline monitor and event table are in the correct configuration for terminal count.
Verified.
RC, verify solar radiation acceptable for launch.
Verified.
All right, so you saw the crew starting to pull their visors down there. That configuration is needed for proper airflow through their suit. In case of an emergency, they could pressurize their suits quickly if needed. That is the importance of having everything zipped up and ready to go. And they really enjoy the fact that these helmets are much easier to get on. They just sit back on their suits, just like a hoodie of a sweatshirt, so they're able just to pull them forward and zip them up.
Houston, Starliner, visor config complete.
Houston copies, visor config complete.
All right, they're all zipped up. And this config
All
also calls...
communications switch to channel 1. All personnel and visitors remain in present position until launch. Maintain operational silence in the LCC.
So, Lauren, that's kind of
the LC with a terminal count briefing. If a condition exceeds the launch constraint anytime after the terminal count status check, the observer shall announce hold, hold, hold on channel 1, identify their station, and briefly state the reason for the hold.
So, Lauren, we just heard a couple of our standard pre-launch announcements. During the countdown, the individual teams, so think of the Atlas propulsion team and the Centaur propulsion team, are off working on separate nets as they perform their functions. All that work is complete, and so essentially what that last announcement does is bring the entire team back to the primary command channel, net 1, or loop 1 as we call it, and the rest of the countdown will now be conducted on net 1,
Roger.
And we'll all kind of hear that together.
18 minutes.
Also, at this point,
Flight
our
control,
operators are
perform
going to be
launch
heads
on time
down.
verification.
Roger.
And so the only conversation in the LCC from this point forward is just going to be the working through the launch procedures. There'll be no other ancillary conversation whatsoever.
And we'll also be listening to some of those side channels that aren't public on your TV screen right now. So we'll be listening for a few polls, one that's called the Starliner readiness poll for terminal count. And that is one of the shorter polls. And it will be coming from the Boeing Mission Control Center, or we call it the BMCC here in Florida. The spacecraft launch conductor, Brian Gardner, will poll people in that room in charge of the propulsion system and power and many other subsystems. He will have 3 call-outs to him.
L-minus 17 minutes.
OSM, place SRB ignition SNA switch to the enable position.
SRB ignition enabled.
And verify FCO, RCO, and OSM hold fire switches are in the proceed position.
Ready to proceed.
Launch on time verified.
Roger.
And
LC Peony 1.
Go ahead.
AHB charging reestablish and at flight mass.
Roger.
So, Lauren, we're quickly coming to the end now of the launch vehicle pre-launch procedure, and we're just about 7 minutes away from our terminal count status check. But we heard a couple of call-outs there. That one of the range safety representatives activated the SRB ignition enable, so that allows us to fire the SRB ordnance circuits that ignite the SRBs at T0. Those circuits are not enabled till just as we heard, just a few moments ago.
L-minus 16 minutes.
And also another range safety system is the hold fire system. So there are remote switches at the Space Launch Delta 45 Morel Operations Center up the road. And if any of the range safety representatives see an issue, they can press a button and stop our countdown remotely. So those switches have been enabled as well.
All right, you are taking a live look at Atlas V and Starliner stacked on top with astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams inside, ready to go to space. We are just coming up on about 15 minutes from launch, and we are going to send it over to NASA's Daryl Nell at Hangar AE. Daryl.
Thank you very much, Lauren. And you've heard the polls from ULA. Also polling a go. The NASA operations manager, Richard Jones, checked with his team, gave them the go. As far as weather is concerned, you heard it mentioned on the nets, there was an L-30 weather brief.
We see your CM Essential. That's just to do with the internal power transition. No action.
Okay, no action. We got the suit fan DP low. It's back on now.
Looking.
No issue there. But again, the weather, 90% go. No concern. We're expected to be go for T0. We are go right now. Green across the board. We do have some high cirrus clouds, as you can see there up in the upper parts of the sky. And you can see the ground winds.
LC flight, channel 1 and air to ground 1 are now merged, going to air to ground 1.
Roger.
LC flight, air to ground 1, ready for comm check with Starliner and channel 1.
Roger. Starliner, LC, comm check on channel 1.
So we got you loud and clear. Looks like we got suit fan, all suit fans failed a warning.
Butch Wilmore.
And I copied your comm check, Starliner. In Capcom, did you catch that message?
And Starliner and LC Capcom A-firm, we see the messages. We're working more to follow. Stand by.
Standing by.
Butch Wilmore has a warning light on his console. He's talking it over with Capcom. While they do that,
Starliner, visors open, please, while we work the suit fans. Visors open.
So they're going to have the astronauts open their visors.
All right, visors are open.
While they work an issue with them.
Houston, but suit fan Bravo went down and switched to Alpha. It had a DP low, and then it, of course, went off. We still show power to Alpha is on.
Working an issue with
Houston
the suit.
copies.
L-13 minutes.
And Starliner, we showed the same for your info. We're swapping suit fans back to Bravo. Continue to stand by for us.
Standing by.
So the issue here is a problem with the primary suit fan operation. They got to have that suit fan to keep the air circulating inside their suits. With that having a warning, they've asked, Capcom has asked the astronauts to pop open their visors so they can get some fresh air, and they'll work it into a redundant mode, going into a redundant suit fan. So they continue to work that. As we get under T-minus 12 minutes and counting. The Boeing team working an issue in real time right now.
LC flight channel 1.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the condition we're in an LPT condition with both suit fans down. We're trying to get these reactivated. But we're going to proceed.
Roger. So good to stow the crew access arm.
I'm go.
Roger.
All right, the team continuing to work the suit fan issue. Again, just to recap on weather, we're go. And now we're looking to take the next steps. So we'll send it back to Megan, Mike, and Dee.
Minus 11 minutes.
As you just heard there, 11 minutes to liftoff.
Roger.
From only the 6th-time NASA astronauts will launch on a new spacecraft designed for crew. I want to ask you really quick before we toss it over for that terminal count, the final moments of the countdown. How are you guys feeling?
feeling great, excited, making sure teams work to troubleshoot the last little bit, and hopefully we'll see liftoff today.
I'm very excited for Butch and Sunny, and as we like to say, go Atlas, go Centaur, go Starliner.
Go Butch and Sunny, that's right. All right, so let's send it over to the ASOC where Lauren and Dylan will walk us through the final moments of the countdown.
All right, thank you, Megan. So what we are looking for next here is that crew access arm to start making its way back over.
Starliner, on our end, we brought suit fan Bravo back on. It looked good. We need both. We need to prove that A is also there, so we're commanding Alpha on and then off at this time. More to follow.
All right.
Yep, we see it. And we're still visors up, so you know.
All right.
So you hear this troubleshooting happening in real time. They are moving forward with everything else while they troubleshoot
Flight
that
verify CST 100 on internal power.
Verified.
Starliner, configure ordnance for launch.
That's in work.
Starliner on internal power now. The spacecraft is running completely on its own. Ordnance has also been configured for launch. That means the devices that initiate our separation events.
Yeah, we reactivated suit fan Bravo. Suit fan Alpha is also working, so we cleared our LCC condition. And for the crew, you can take visors down.
Visors down and ordnance configured.
LC copies both.
All right, it's got to feel good to put those visors down now.
So Lauren, we were seeing that big visual cue, the crew access arm retracting. It takes about 2 minutes to retract and stow 120 degrees away from Starliner back against the crew access tower. In the event of an emergency, it can be redeployed in less than 15 seconds.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. We don't want to see it do that, but we're glad it can if it needs to. And we have a couple of polls coming up here in about 2 minutes. The launch vehicle poll, launch vehicle management poll.
Yeah, Lauren, that's right at L-8 minutes. Next door to us in the Mission Director Center, that's going to be the mission management team poll for launch. And at L-7 minutes, the final terminal count status check down in the LCC. And that is where Chief Launch Conductor Doug Lebo will poll his team, verify their readiness, and then the launch director next door to us will give him permission to launch today.
LC arm control.
Go ahead.
Crew access arm stowed for launch.
Roger.
All right, the crew access arm is stowed.
LC switch to ready position.
Everything looking good?
All steps are complete prior to status check.
And Dylan and I will be a little more quiet as we get closer here to launch so we can listen into all of the actions as they're happening in real time. Again, just under 7.5 minutes till Starliner astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sunny Williams make history as the first crew headed to the International Space Station on Boeing Starliner.
L-7 minutes.
Status check to proceed with terminal count, Atlas systems, propulsion,
Go.
hydraulics,
Go.
pneumatics,
Go.
LO2,
Go.
water,
Go.
Centaur systems, propulsion,
Go.
pneumatics,
Go.
LO2,
Go.
LH2,
Go.
has gas,
Go.
electrical systems, airborne,
Go.
ground,
Go.
facility,
Go.
RFFTS,
Go.
flight control,
Go.
GCQ,
Go.
op support,
Go.
comm,
Go.
umbilicals,
Go.
arm control,
Go.
ECS,
Go.
redline monitor,
Go.
quality,
Go.
op safety manager,
Go.
ULA safety officer,
Go.
vehicle system engineer,
Go.
anomaly chief,
Go.
range coordinator,
Clear to proceed.
flight director,
Houston flight is go.
Starliner,
Starliner, go.
launch director,
You have permission to launch.
proceeding with the count. ALC, verify T0 is set for 16:25:40 Zulu.
Verified.
Starliner net is clear.
Thank you, LC. To all of you sitting on console, whether you're in Houston, BMCC, ASOC, Atlas, this is a great day to be proud of your nation. And all of you listening as well, whether you're at Banana Creek or the Causeway or the rooftop of LCC or the ASOC and other places around our nation, like the Bay Area building and other places where you are viewing what's taking place. Again, for you, it's a great day to be proud of your nation, great day to be proud of Boeing, great day to be proud of UOA and NASA. And we are one nation under God, indivisible. And when we together use the power of that combination, we can do some pretty amazing things. So LC, with that, we are ready to put some fire in this rocket and propel this spacecraft to the International Space Station, where all these fine Americans have designed and have prepared it to be.
Calypso, take us to space and back.
Roger, Starliner.
LC flight, Starliner configured for terminal count.
Roger. All steps are complete prior to terminal count.
And with that, we are ready to go to space, Lauren.
Hard not to be emotional listening to those words from Butch. I'm sure we'll be playing that speech back for a long time.
Will be T-minus 4 minutes and counting. 3, 2, 1, mark. .355.
Ground pyros enabled.
Launch pad ordnance circuits are now enabled.
Hold. Flight control received a CCLS, hold it. Approximately T-minus 350.
LC switch not ready. All personnel turn to recycle section. Operation 80. LC switch is not ready. Clock stopped at T-minus 3 minutes 50 seconds. Starliner, you should not hear any vent at this point.
Starliner standing by.
ALC, reset countdown clock to T-minus 4 minutes and holding.
Active.
LC Peony 2.
Go ahead.
Sensor tank pressures are stable.
Roger.
LC Peony 1.
Go ahead.
Atlas tank pressures are stable.
Roger. OSM, place SRB ignition SNA switch to disabled position.
SRB ignition disabled.
Okay, consoles, step 60, report launch vehicle status. Atlas lead.
Atlas tank pressures and helium bottles stable. Atlas propulsion system stable.
Roger. Centaur lead.
Centaur tank pressures and helium bottles stable. Centaur propulsion system stable. Has gas readings nominal.
Roger. Vehicle electrical. VE channel 1.
Avionics system stable.
Roger. And LC can verify no indications of hazards. Flight LC.
LC Starliner systems are stable.
Roger. Starliner, last arm switch to off.
Last arm switch is off.
FCS in pre-flight mode, SSVAPs inactive, OCU safe, and EDS in test mode.
Roger. Arm control, deploy the crew access arm.
Roger.
Starliner, proceed with ordnance deactivation.
Passing 1. Coordinates deconfigured. All off.
Roger.
LC,
And go ahead, ALC.
countdown clock is reset, T-minus 4 minutes and holding.
Roger. Flight, verify CST 100 ordnance is safe.
Verified.
Okay, all stations, recycle systems back to T-minus 4 and holding configuration. Hold time occurred at T-minus 3 minutes 50 seconds. Report status at completion. And flight LC.
LC.
CST 100 power to external.
Copy. We'll put it in work.
LC LOX 1.
Go ahead.
Subset Bravo, Atlas LO2, continuing topping.
Roger.
LC LOX 2.
Go ahead.
Substep Golf, Centaur LO2, continuing topping.
Roger.
LC Field 2.
Go ahead.
Centaur LH2, continuing topping.
Roger.
LC
LC.
Peony 1.
Go ahead, Peony 1.
Atlas Pneumatics, pressure stable.
Roger.
LC, Peony 2.
Go ahead.
Substep Echo, CEC active.
Roger.
And substep Foxtrot, sensor pneumatic system stable.
Roger.
LC Prop 1.
Go ahead.
Substep Charlie and substep Delta, Atlas propulsion and hydraulic system stable.
Roger.
LC ECS.
Go ahead.
Substep November, ECS set point stable.
Roger.
LC, this flight control.
Go ahead.
Substep Kilo, flight control ready.
Roger.
If you're just joining us here at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station,
Go ahead.
True axis arm is deployed.
Roger.
we did have a automatic hold of our ground launch sequencer shortly after we began our terminal count for today's launch attempt. No indication yet as to what caused that hold of the automatic ground launch sequencer. The team is still evaluating data. In the meantime, the team is active recycling the vehicle to a good holding state so that we can prepare for our next steps. But for now,
Roger.
We are holding at T-minus 4 minutes, recycling the vehicle after a hold of our ground launch sequencer shortly after picking up terminal count for today's launch opportunity.
LC has gas. Has gas. Substep Hotel has gas. Normal scan pattern including CAT. Roger.
And flight LC. Channel 1.
Flight.
Yes. Roger. Secure CST-100 prop system. Last valve to remain open.
Flight copies. Probably take us at least 5 minutes here.
Yeah, copy.
We're going to send it over to NASA's Daryl Nail over at Hangar AE for some continuing coverage of our current
FTS
status.
LC.
Daryl?
Thanks, Dylan. And I'm listening to the NASA operations manager's loop.
Recycle status.
Recycle.
Roger. SYS LC.
Yes, LC, GC30 is ready.
Roger.
As you mentioned, the ULA team now safing the vehicle, making sure all the high energy systems that were prepared to launch are now put into a safe configuration. At 12:21 p.m., roughly T-minus 3 minutes and 39 seconds, we got a hold.
Launch Director, LC, Channel 1.
LDM1.
Yes, sir. So we had a hold call at T-minus 3 minutes and 50 seconds by the CCLS launch sequencer. So at this time, we've completed our recycle back to T-minus 4 and holding configuration and ready to proceed with a scrub crew egress operation.
Yeah, roger that. Standby.
Roger.
There you heard confirmation of the scrub call for this launch attempt today. Again, this was the ground launch sequencer, essentially the computer that launches.
LC.
Roger.
This is the computer that is in charge.
All personnel going to Operation 85. OSM, LC.
OSM.
Establish the BDA roadblocks and open the flight hazard area.
Roger.
And all personnel on Channel 1 will be starting an approximate 65-minute hold at this time for flight crew egress. All systems maintain T-minus 4 and holding configuration.
The hold time is not relevant at this point. The fact is they're getting it into a state where they can go through and get the crew out of the spacecraft. But I was mentioning the computer. This is the computer that when we go into terminal count, launches the rocket, brings a number of systems and a huge number of operations all at a rapid pace. Something with the GLS, it's not understood at this time what it is, caused the GLS to throw an automatic holdout at T-minus 3 minutes and 50 seconds.
Arm control.
Yeah, per step 40, can you give me that call out on the status of the crew access arm?
Crew access arm deployed and latched. Arm control is terminated, ready for personnel access.
Roger. And FELC?
Go ahead.
Start CAT TVM system monitoring.
Roger.
RLM LC?
RLM on 1.
Disable RLM line items for crew egress per red line report.
Roger. LCFE.
Go ahead.
CAT TVM system enabled. Readings nominal.
Roger.
The NASA operations manager now conveying to his team that they are looking at possibly a 24-hour turnaround.
Go ahead, flight.
Yeah, CST 100's on ground power.
Roger.
Of course, there'll be a lot of data to look at, but
and flight LC.
See, go ahead.
Yeah, just looking for your estimate for prop systems securing, to support pad entry.
Need 5 more minutes.
Roger. Thank you.
Everything you're hearing now is about getting the crew, which is the primary focus at this moment by the launch team, out of the spacecraft and back on the ground. So configuring the crew access arm, it's locked in. They continue to do the operations which are in their schedule for a launch scrub, moving through those methodically. The report out that we heard by the CGLS was that at the time of the scrub, when the hold was listed, it didn't appear to load into the proper configuration. ULA will work to try to understand the cause behind that. They don't know that at this time. They'll be studying the data. NASA's commercial crew team will be right there with them, helping and assisting throughout this process. So we can see on the views here inside Hangar AE that they have the crew access arm back locked into the Starliner. You can see that on your screen there. Essentially the team now working Just to recap, if you're just joining us at 12:21 p.m. Eastern Time, T-minus 3 minutes and 50 seconds until liftoff. A hold was given by the ULA launch team, an automatic hold that was issued by the ground launch sequencer, the computer that takes over terminal count. The reason for that hold is not known at this time. The focus now by the launch team is to make sure the rocket is in a good and safe configuration. That's many of the calls that you're hearing out. And also that they, once it is safe enough, that they get the crew of Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams, have them exit the spacecraft, come back down the elevators, and head back to crew quarters. I want to bring in United Launch Alliance commentator Dylan Rice.
System stable.
Pneumatic.
And yeah, Daryl, the team continues to work through the process to establish a stable configuration so that we can start pulling the crew off of the Starliner capsule. Still no update yet in terms of what caused the ground launch sequencer abort, but just like loading the crew, we establish a safe and stable configuration with the launch vehicle before we begin the egress process, and the configurations are very, very close to the same, actually. We'll be maintaining the propellant systems in a topping mode and not changing the state of the Atlas or Centaur as we go through the approximate 1 hour process of egressing Butch and Sunny from the Starliner capsule. But teams are continuing to evaluate the data and look into the cause of the ground launch sequencer abort. In the meantime, we will start to see indications that the team is re-entering the pad. And in fact, the direction was just given to allow the blue team back into the pad. So we will start to see that activity now, and teams come back into the pad, back up the tower, and begin the process of opening up Starliner and egressing Butch and Sunny.
Yeah, so that's a good sign there. You mentioned with the blue team coming back to the pad, they are the ones that will pull the crew out of Starliner. We heard that the pad area is cleared for them to come in. It's a good sign. Dylan, what's your time estimation on the team going through the rest of their procedures to make sure that the crew can go ahead and get up the elevator?
Actually, I think that we're there. So it's been just about 20 minutes since the hold was called, and in that 20 minutes time, we've established those configurations. In fact, we don't even let the pad team come back through the fence line until those safe and stable configurations have been established. So. Once the team will, of course, be standing by at the fallback area, and they were contacted via radio and told to proceed back to the gate, and they will proceed through the gate and right back up to the crew access tower and on up to level 12 where they can begin configuring the white room. So we are there at this point in terms of being ready to redeploy the environmental seal, which kind of encloses the Starliner door into the white room, and then we'll begin opening up Starliner so that we can egress Butch and Sunny.
Yeah, we can see from this shot here that environmental seal is not on. Of course, this is the configuration right before you move the crew access arm either away or back to the capsule. So you can see the open air between the white room and the crew capsule. That will take the blue team, of course, getting up to the white room to put that environmental seal in place, which they are on the way. I'm monitoring some of the camera feeds. They haven't arrived yet, but they are on their way, as we've heard from the loops. Dylan, just give us an idea of the role the ground launch sequencer plays in the final 10 minutes of terminal count.
So essentially, the launch sequencer is performing all the actions that are occurring during the terminal count. So you will hear our operators provide status throughout the terminal count, but those operators are not actually performing manual actions. They're just reporting on the actions of the ground launch sequencer. So for instance, the vehicle propellant tanks will transition from a topping mode into a pressurization mode as they are pressurized to their flight pressure. Once the tanks are pressurized, we'll start to configure the avionics systems as well for launch, and ultimately hand over to from the ground computer to the flight computer, which handles the actual final seconds of the countdown prior to liftoff. But the ground launch sequencer is securing propellant topping. It's beginning the process of pressurizing the vehicle for flight, It will be transitioning the vehicle from the ground electrical systems to the onboard batteries and enabling the ordnance systems, ultimately leading to the engine ignition sequence once the control has been handed over from the ground computer over to the flight computers.
And you've mentioned just some of the things that GLS does, right? It is a very busy computer in the final 10 minutes, as you mentioned, going through all of these very timely high-energy systems that are being configured at the last in the last minutes before liftoff. To recap, if you're just joining us, the mission, the NASA's Boeing's crew flight test of the Boeing Starliner was scrubbed at 12:21 p.m. Eastern Time when a hold was issued by the ground launch sequencer for the Atlas V rocket. It was at T-minus 3 minutes and 50 seconds, just a little less than 4 minutes before liftoff when that abort was called. The crew of Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams, who are inside the capsule at the top of this rocket, as you can see here, are safe and are awaiting. There you see a shot of them. There's Sonny on the left and Butch on the right. They are awaiting the arrival of the blue team to come out to the launch pad and help them egress, which essentially means get out of the Starliner capsule and head back to crew quarters. It's a process that requires that team to do some manual work to lock in the crew access arm to the Starliner capsule. And so they will wait for those moments to arrive. And if we've got Lauren Brennicke on, our PAO with the Boeing team. Okay, we just heard a call that the blue team is entering the pad, and I can see them on the closed circuit television. They are in their van, as you can see there, the shot there, arriving back. This is the team that will head back up the launch tower and up into the white room. They will secure the crew access arm to Boeing Starliner, open up the hatch, and get the astronauts out. Just prior to this, 20, 30 minutes or so, we've been listening to the ULA team safe the Atlas V vehicle, basically going through a number of steps to make sure that the tanks for the liquid oxygen, liquid hydrogen, the RP-1 propellant, make sure everything is in a safe configuration before they allowed this crew to get on the pad. And you see the van there with the 321 backing up to the launch tower. Lauren, I want to ask you about, you've spent a lot of time studying the procedures for Starliner. Talk a little bit about the egress and this process that we're getting ready.